Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome along. It is indeed Friday night once again. So you know what that means on the bus. It's time to take a wee trip through the old archives. We time travelling night is all about the Scottish Cup final this evening. Because in case you haven't noticed, because there's been a few news stories this week, but if you've managed to not pay attention to the other one, you might have forgotten. We've got a rather big cup final tomorrow. Yes, we are playing in the Scottish Cup final. We're looking for trophy number 41 in the Scottish Cup. We're playing Inverness. So, yes, tonight is all about Celtic's great relationship with the old Scottish Cup, the famous old trophy. That's what we'll be doing tonight. And as you can see, folks, the usual classic time travelling team has joined me this evening. Russell Bhoycie, how you doing, mate?
Yes, mate. Good to be back on the old Bustalgia. Enjoyed it last week, catching up. It was good. Good to be back on, though, of course.
Yeah,
good to see you boys. Hope you're both all right. Exciting for tomorrow, and hopefully this will set us up nicely for the Scottish Cup final, because whilst we look through the history books at some legendary Scottish Cup finals, could tomorrow become arguably the most historical of all? And certainly a record-breaking one, to say the least. I don't know why I'm turning into Jonathan on a Monday night, but
You've got to do an opening monologue. But you have been quite vocal this week. Do you think it's going to be a resounding victory? So, any victory will do me, but that would be special if that happened tomorrow. That would be that scoreline that you've been predicting. But we shall see. And of course, down below me, there we've got Canada's favourite Tim, the wise man of the bus himself, Liam Greenlaw. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing good, Phil. It's been a funny week. Usually before a cup final, I'm excited. I know who we're up against. I know every one of our players, who's going to match up against who. Haven't even thought about that this week. All the distractions and that. And my God, as a fan, I'm distracted for the game. I'm invested in, what's Anne's going to do. So this is an unusual cup final, but I'm hoping by the time we finish up the day, I've got it all back, and it's like, let's celebrate the oldest football cup on earth, right?
Oh, aye, indeed, we will, mate. We'll try our best to avoid and park that topic for this evening, but I'm sure it will come up at some point tonight, and there will be a wee preview show as well tomorrow before the final as well. So, and then of course PMP. Who knows? We'll see what the body language experts will be out in force, I'm sure, tomorrow during the game.
There will be a bit of that, you're right.
It definitely will be. Definitely will. But before we get into it, folks, of course, I'll just remind everybody to do all that good stuff. So, of course, if you're brand new to the bus, you've only just discovered this, then by all means, hit that subscribe button. And remember to hit the old bell notification there to be reminded when we go live. We do go live quite a lot during the week, and we continue to do so going into the summer. Don't worry, the bus will be going nowhere. We will be still churning out plenty of content. I'm sure Celtic will give us plenty of headlines, especially when transfer silly season opens up. There's going to be loads of link to this player, link to that. So the bus will be still chugging along as it does every week. So look out for us on your YouTube notifications. Of course,
chugging along. That leads you into the sponsors, well.
Maybe there was a subtle link there, maybe. But yeah, we'll of course hit that old like button as well. Help us out with the old algorithms on YouTube, spreads the Bhoycie Bus around a wee bit more, lets people know about us. Of course, get involved in the comments tonight. As always, we'd like to hear any memories, because I'm sure there'll be a few games tonight that we'll mention that people can say, oh, I was at that one, oh, I remember that one. And, because there's been plenty of memorable moments along the way in the Scottish Cup. And of course, you could share the link of the Bhoycie Bus on any social media platform that you wish. And remember to follow the Bhoycie Bus Twitter account at Bhoycie Bus. And regarding sponsors, as Russell was teeing it up there, yes, indeed, we do have a good old sponsor. Let me get the old QR code on the go here. Yes, edpharmacy.co.uk. Oh, no, I will just remove the Scottish Cup banner there. So the QR code is perfectly scannable. But yes, as I've been saying, the one I've used a few times now, don't be like a Derg Barictor, somebody always breaks down and doesn't perform how he's supposed to. Be like Dyson Maeda, and you can go all night long with edpharmacy.co.uk. And of course, use the code BUS10 to get 10% off on your order. And of course, our classic sponsor as well, they've had for on it up in the top corner, even though they're hidden behind Russell's picture, piesports.com. Is .com into it as a .co.uk? I've now lost track. .com.
Piesports.com.
Piesports is .com. edpharmacies.co.uk.
Yes.
And of course,
I'm going to get that wrong now, Phil, for the rest of the shows now. You've just planted a seed of doubt in my mind.
That's what I'm seeing. You get different website sponsors. One's a .com, one's a .co.uk. Eventually, it starts to, like, in your mind, all just merges into one. But piesports.com, and use the code BUS1888 and get yourself a very tasty 12.5% off your order. As Steve always pushes on here, the kebab pies are rather special, so get in about them. And with all that done, we can get on with it. I've got a bit of quick trivia for you. I think it's quite an easy question, but hey, we're going into the close season now, so might as well just take it easy on the old trivia. I don't want to stress you out too much. So a wee quickie tonight in terms of answers. I think you will get them no problem, guys, between the two of you. I'm looking for 6 answers because obviously tonight it's all about Scottish Cup finals. And of course, in recent years, Celtic have had rather good luck in the old Scottish Cup final. We had a quadruple treble not too long ago, and of course the Scottish Cup is part of that. So I'm just looking for the name of the 7 answers. Sorry, 7 goal scorers that Celtic had across those 4 Scottish Cup finals in the quadruple treble era: 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. There were 7 different goal scorers for Celtic in those 4 finals. That's all I'm looking for tonight. So not too difficult a question. But anyway, we shall get into it, guys. Scottish Cup. It says the famous old trophy. I've got a wee Scottish Cup fact, Phil. You want to talk about trivia and stuff like that? I've got a few things just about the Scottish Cup and that, because it's a famous old trophy. Now, one of the things that's always misquoted, I hear this said a lot of times, people say it's the oldest tournament in the world. It's actually not the oldest tournament. The FA Cup in England is the oldest tournament by a couple of years. The trophy, however, is the oldest trophy in the world. It's the physical trophy itself is the oldest. So, of course, as we know, the Scottish Cup trophy, there it is there. And all its glory, we're hoping that the green and white ribbons are on that tomorrow and Celtic will be lifting it. But as I say, the oldest trophy in the world, or the oldest tournament, is actually the English FA Cup. Although that is not the original English FA Cup, that's actually the 3rd variation of it, because the first one actually got stolen. Aston Villa won the FA Cup in 1895, right, and they decided to allow a local sports equipment shop to parade or basically display this cup in the window for the people of Birmingham to see as they walked by in the street, and they got pinched, and they never ever found it. They've either been for another version of the cup after that, and then the one that you see now is actually the one. But in terms of trophies, the oldest physical trophy in world football is the Scottish Cup. It is the same one from day one that they first presented in 1874 to Queen's Park. And here is a picture of Celtic with in 1908. And as you can see, the Scottish Cup down there at the bottom is the same trophy. That's in 1908 as well. That's how old we're talking here. But yeah, Celtic with the cup there. But yeah, it's the famous old trophy. But it's one of those facts that I've heard people say, it's the oldest tournament, it's the oldest trophy. But yeah, the Scottish Cup. In terms of the actual final itself and what it means, I think Mark said this before, Bhoycie, when it comes to the Scottish Cup final, it is the sort of one that brings the curtain down the season. When you think of the Scottish Cup, you think of the bright weather, sunshine most of the time. I know we still live in Scotland, so it's not always guaranteed, but you do get that image. And it's something right about Celtic being in that final game to close the season, isn't there?
There is, and there's so many memories from it as well. I mean, I know we'll get to it, but I always look at the Van Hooijdonk header against Airdrie and stuff, and I think of stuff like that, and I go, that since then, that was it imprinted in my mind. It was the first time I seen Celtic lift a trophy. It'd been a big gap, and I think since then, it's a special day. And you do want to be in the showpiece event, and it's funny to think Ange hasn't won one yet. What's all that about? What's he shite? If there's any Spurs fans watching right now, he's hopeless.
Yeah,
he can't even win a Scottish Cup yet in the Farmers League country. Do you know what I mean? He's awful. And I know there is Spurs fans watching. I don't know if you noticed that in the live. In the reaction comments from last night, there was a Spurs fan in touch trying to get the down low. So if there are any more watching tonight, he's not even won the Scottish Cup yet. I mean, he's a diddy.
Oh, terrible. Well, hopefully that distracts them from him. Liam, what about yourself when it comes to the Scottish Cup? Say like that showpiece final the way to close out the season. There is something romantic about being in that final. I mean, the League Cup, sometimes it's played in the dead of winter, sometimes it's played around about springtime. It moves all over the place on the calendar, but with the Scottish Cup, it's the older trophy. It's more when people talk about the double, even though, if you do win the league and the League Cup, technically you have won a league and cup double, but this is the one that really, when it comes to a double, this is the cup that you're talking about. And then, obviously it equates to a big part of the treble, which we're hoping to pick up tomorrow. But Scottish Cup final, bright sunshine, beers out, it's a good occasion, isn't it?
That's what it reminds me of. It was like bears coming out of hibernation. See, when we used to watch the games in Toronto, it was like that. You'd watch them all winter long, and then by the time you get to the end of the May, that's all the patios are open, and that game would be on Toronto time. Finish up about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and so it'd be plenty of time to go and meet your pals and I'll go for beers and stuff like that. And the hardest thing back in those days was trying to get the pub to pick if you were going to get the Scottish FA Cup or the English FA Cup. Well, there was loads of battles there. That was the hardest thing, It was like everybody wanted to show the English one and stuff, and it was like, there was guys that wanted to see the Scottish one, And so you'd have to say, hey, it caused a lot of fights in that back then.
Well, thankfully this year there'll be no clashes with the times, because obviously we've had a bit of fiasco at this end with the moving of the times, and the head of the SFA or whatever has been caught out with his statement that it would, it's something about it would allow the national audience across all the UK to see it, and it turns out BBC England aren't even showing it, and then there's this whole thing about...
And they've not shown it for years.
Yeah, if the English FA Cup final goes to extra time, they'll just be like, it just overruns, BBC Scotland will just have to, or BBC One Scotland will just have to wait. So it's like, what a shambles, man. So
it was mad, because see, when he said it, I actually thought, you know what? If it was going to the half 12, I think that was originally touted, I would have been like, that's just madness. But when it went to half 5, I, in my mind's eye, thought that makes sense. Then you've got the best of both worlds, because that means the BBC, not BBC Scotland, the BBC can show both games. And then I think it was STV's Grant Russell, or he used to work for STV. He basically did a thread on Twitter and quoted the shows in each year for the last 15 years, Liam, right? Of all the things in England that the BBC has shown instead of the Scottish Cup final. The Antiques Roadshow one year, mate. The fucking Antiques Roadshow. So what it leads you to ask yourself, though, right? And I think it's worth the chat, because it's a Scottish Cup special. Yeah. Why come out with that powder puff pish? Why come out with that when it's not the case? And it's not like he's making it. It's not like he's not aware of that. We have had to do, or Grant Russell in his case, had to do a bit of digging to actually look into that. You're not telling me he's making statements, or if he is to be believed and he didn't realise they weren't showing it, so you're making decisions not aware of what you're even talking about. You're basing decisions on TV opportunity that doesn't actually exist, and you just presumed it went to the whole UK. Are you definitely in the top job here at the SFA? The whole thing's a bit of a farce when you look at it that way. It's not the real reason. I'm not going to try and even speculate what the real reason is, but for whatever that reason may be, stop saying the word reason, but for whatever that reason may be, they've done it and then decided not to tell you quite the truth behind their thinking, because it's either incompetence or a complete lie. But it's one of the two. Do you know what I mean? Either didn't know, like we all didn't know that it's not shown down there, or he's just basically used that as an excuse, not thinking we would find out. I don't understand why that is. It's just bizarre, Liam.
Well, it's funny, Russell, having worked abroad most of my life, see, when you're in a room with another Scot or that, there's a sense, like there's a persona there and stuff. It's usually one of the smartest guys in the room. And I'll tell you that, it was like usually guys that are really dialed in. Came across guys like Logan Roy for Succession, that sort of thing. And so I'm wondering when I see what happens in Scotland and how business is done in the SFA and that, I'm like, right, where are these same type of people? How are they not showing up in Scotland? Because they show up abroad and they show up in big places and they do huge things. And then I'm looking at like the absolute novice moves, and our club does it as well. in regard to marketing and how we take things that are like part of a really strong brand and then just like take it down to something that means nothing, because now we're not even looking to see how our TV audience is going to react to being up against another game at the same time. We've got a niche audience. We'll come and find that. Their game could be absolute crap and people could come to us. But anyway, what you're saying, it's in confidence of the fact that he didn't know. He doesn't know where, how, or what the English TV channels were doing. And so to be making, huge decisions and stuff like that, well, I don't know, that's any other big corporation. That's what you get the sack for. How's he not getting the sack?
Absolutely. If you go public on that, public on that sort of shit, and like you've laid it out plain and clear. There was method behind the madness of moving the time, and it was to accommodate, and that is the reason he goes for. He goes for that as being cut and dry. Does it make sense to you now? And to be fair, like I say, I generally went, that kind of does make sense. I don't have as much of a problem with it. 12:30 I wasn't as keen on, which again, by the way, initially they wanted to do. Yep. If you remember, 12:30, I mean, they're just taking the piss, out Inverness in particular. But the 5:30 thing, if he's got one reason and he gives it, and it's wrong, it's factually just completely wide off the mark, then what is the other reasons? Because there has to be something more to it, because once you find that out, you can go, oh, well, they're not showing it anyway, we'll just go at 3. So why is it you can't?
So the boys say the other reason is because they want to do a big lead-in. Right, so anytime you want to sort of market anything like that at a certain time, you want to build up an audience, and then you're going to get your core Scottish audience. But at that point as well, if that's a really good game or it's a shite game or whatever, but whoever's having a party and said, "Oh, I wish there was more football to watch," bang, there's an immediate game on after that right away, and that might get you more of a bigger share of an English audience than doing it the other way around. That was the only advantage I could ever see him doing that. But that's not what he came out of. That would have made perfect sense to me.
How are we going to get the English audience though if it's not on an English BBC?
Right. And then it's on Viaplay, so it's not on Sky anymore. It's on Viaplay.
It's not even on the English BBC. That's what we've established. It won't be shown.
And if I'm right, I don't think English football fans have a reason to buy Viaplay because none of their tournaments or their national team are even on Viaplay. So it's not even going to work that way neither.
That makes no sense.
It just seems mad that he came out with that in this day and age.
Is it Viaplay, do you think?
What's that?
Do you think Viaplay, they're the ones that said we don't want it to clash with English FA Cup final? Bear in mind, are they Norwegian, Phil?
They are from one of the Scandinavian
Norwegian, one of the Scandinavian countries. Are they maybe thinking that a wee bit naively, that putting them together might actually see a drop-off in those who watch the Scottish one? But Liam's right. I mean, it's a niche market. If you're watching the Scottish Cup final or the English FA Cup final, there's no crossover, like, to me.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, I think the proof will be in the pudding once all the ratings come out, tomorrow evening or Sunday or whatever, when they look at the numbers. But it just seems mad that he's come out with a reason in this day and age where everything is information, is right at your fingertips all over the internet. As you say, who was it from STV just went on Twitter and just there you go. There's all the shows and knowing that can just come out. So it's completely proved them wrong. And yeah, it's just another shambles to add to the list of things the SFA do wrong. Because as far as I can remember, this is the first time that the only other time I can remember the Scottish Cup final not being on a Saturday at 3:00 was we played Hibs in 2013 on a Sunday. But it's because the Champions League final was at Wembley the night before on the Saturday. And UEFA have got this rule about if the Champions League's on, only the Champions League is on. Nothing's meant to clash with it. So the SFA moved our final in 2013 with Hibs to the Sunday. But every other time, it's always Saturday, 3:00 for the Scottish Cup final. In England, over the last few years, they have fannied around with kickoff times, 5:30s. They also do this really annoying thing. Being a pure football traditionalist that I am, they'll sometimes have the FA Cup final like 2 weeks before the final league game. That's happened before, where when Wigan beat Man City, Wigan get relegated the next week. They had to play Wigan the next week and get relegated. So they've had a few years, and it's just like, that's things like that annoy me. It should always be the showpiece final to close your season domestically. But yeah, in Scotland, they say traditionally we've always been 3:00 on Saturday, but this year it's different. And yeah, thanks a lot for that one, SFA. fannying about with old kick-off times and just not able to justify it. As you've just said there with all the reasons they came out with. Absolute pie-in-the-sky stuff. So nothing surprises me anymore with them at all. Nothing surprises me. But yeah, regarding the tomorrow then with the Scottish Cup, say we are now chasing number 41 because Celtic do currently hold the record for the most Scottish Cup wins. They've won it 40 times. The tournament began in 1874, Queen's Park, no surprise. If you had to pick a team from the 1800s, you thought probably won the first Scottish Cup. Most people always say it was at Queen's Park. Yes, it was. They won the first one in 1874. But yeah, we've won it 40 times, going on 41. Guys, who do you think is the most successful manager in the Scottish Cup?
Neil Lennon?
No.
Jockstein?
No, neither. As a Celtic man, though, it's Willie Maley. He's won it 14 times. Jockstein's won it 9 times. He's won it 8 times with Celtic and 1 with Dunfermline. And also, just as a wee extra stat as well, the most successful manager outside of Celtic and Rangers to win it is Alex Ferguson, won it 4 times at Aberdeen. He is the only manager to win it more than with a team that's not Celtic or Rangers. But that was all in a space of about 5 or 6 years he did that as well. Because he took over Aberdeen in like the very late 70s into the sort of mid 80s. And he won 4 Scottish Cups at Aberdeen and 2 or 3 league titles and a Cup Winners' Cup as well. But yeah, he done that in a very short time. But yeah, outside Willie Maley's the most successful with 41. The Jogstein's won at 9, but the most successful non-Celtic or Rangers manager is Alex Ferguson with 4. It's still quite a big gap though when you think about it, because how dominant the 2 Glasgow teams have been in it. But yeah, and of course the attendance record, this is one of the most staggering stats as well, is the European attendance record for a football game was made at a Scottish Cup final way back in 1937, guys. 147,000 people packed out Hampden. There is a picture of the scenes between Celtic and Aberdeen that Celtic did win 2-1. But there is just a small portion of what it looked like. Could you imagine a claustrophobic nightmare if you suffered for that being in there? But back in those days, it was just like that. That's what the pictures were like. When you ever see any old footage of, those types of games, it's like it's just rammed. But interestingly enough, when I read that one, it's like it's the European attendance record. So I was like, if that's the European record, then the world record has to be higher than that. So it turns out the world record for an attendance at a football game is the 1950 World Cup final between Brazil and Uruguay in the Maracanã. 173,000 went at that one, although that's the official number, but most people believe from that time that over 190,000 were actually in attendance for that one. But yeah, when you see the pictures of like that, I see that crowd there, unbelievable. And I think in the 70s, in 1970, Celtic also in Leeds set a record at Hampden. My dad told me about this one because he was at that game. They played Leeds in a semi-final at Hampden, the European Cup semi, and there was like 130,000 at that. And it's like, that's in Scotland as well. It's like, what happens? You look at attendances nowadays for football games in this country. You see games that are live on Sky, like Livingston and stuff like that, and all these empty seats, and it's like, what happened, man? It's crazy. Is it just pricing that's caused it, Russell? That fans just feel that they can't go to a game now because of the price? It's 20-something quid for a ticket in some grounds. But yeah, you just look at some of those pictures. And I know Mark said on the bus before, if he had a time machine to go back, he would go back to something like that just to experience what it'd be like in like the early 1900s, just because it's just fascinating when you see that old footage.
Not as much options as well when you look back. I mean, there's not as many options. There was no. I can't imagine skateboards were all that popular in Glasgow and the rest at that point in time. Maybe they were, but I don't know. I doubt it. I just feel that there's so many different options now. But one thing you've got to also acknowledge with the Scottish game now is we've just yet again finished this season the highest supported league per head capita, whatever the fucking saying is, again this year. So there's more people going to watch football per like the population, if that makes sense. A higher percentage of the population go week on week, on average, to watch Scottish football than they do English football, Spanish, Italian, you name it. We're number 1 in Europe. So that's something you can't really say is then maybe it's changed. I mean, let's be honest. The photos that we see from the 1900s are going to be biblical moments. That's the reason they're photographed, right?
Yeah.
So we're only getting the best bits, right?
Yeah.
We're not seeing, do you know what I mean? Like some of the shite that they've been getting delivered. Do you know what I mean? Which I'm sure there was plenty of at the bottom end of the top flight, etc., like there is now. They're not going to be, oh, this is a real Kodak moment. You know what I mean? Wind up the camera for, you know, I'm sure there was plenty of empty seats if there had been seats back then as well. We maybe sometimes do our own game a disservice at times. There's only so many people here, and we've got the best percentage of folk going to watch our football. And by the way, just whilst we're having pops at the SFA, I mean, for that to be a stat and us to only have one TV deal on the line, we were talking about this the other night, Phil, that is damning. Imagine if, just say, for example, Barry Hearn was in Neil Doncaster's shoes, and he's the guy, the top SB. He'd have that stat thrown about ever. The best supported league in Europe. He'd probably just call it the world just for the banter because no one will check outside Europe. And he would that'd be his marketing tool. He'd be going to Sky, BT, you know, queue up here because more people want to watch this game up in this country than in any other. And I just don't think we even think of that shit when we're selling it.
No, it seems
we're a bit UFC versus boxing, you know. You know, if you look at those early days, that's the way we should be marketed. We are a rougher brand of football. We
Spot
are
on.
More, you know, it's a bit more hammer and nails, you know.
Yeah. We've still got a soul, essentially. That's one of the things that the fans always say, that Scottish football's still got that. But again, it just feels like the SFA is maybe just the old boys act, whatever, that they just don't open themselves to change and outsiders and try to branch out. We've said so many times about just the structure of the league. I know there's a thing going on just now where they're proposing a new fifth tier with the B teams in it, and a lot of the lower league teams are just voting against it and whatnot. And I don't know, it seems if there's any sort of restructure suggested, then it's just like we just don't do anything about it. We're just happy with the status quo. It seems.
Phil, you're right, by the way. You're spot on what you're saying. Does the Scottish Cup have a sponsor this year?
No, it's just the Scottish Cup. That's all. It's not got a.
Yeah, I rest my case.
Yeah,
because that's then it's not just an SPFL thing. You know, it's not just Doncaster. That's then on the end because this isn't a Doncaster production, the Scottish Cup. But between the two of these pricks, do you know what I mean? Whoever it is that's running it, they've not got a clue. They've not got a clue. How can you not get a sponsor for, again, I'll flip it to a Barry Hearn and he goes, the oldest, most majestic trophy in the world. Who doesn't want to be sponsoring that? Again, he has a queue out the door just by being a bit of a salesman. Instead, it's, anyone want to sponsor Scottish Cup? No, didn't think so. We'll move on. Can't he do it? It's no our fault, guys. It's just a strange mindset.
This is absolutely shambles, man. I think the last sponsor they had was William Hill up until about 2018, 2019, around about there. Because before that, it was Tenants for ages, and then that's all I can. In my lifetime, that's all I can remember. Tenants sponsored it for a long time, and then William Hill for a while, and then it's been just sponsorless ever since.
And this is the clincher for Alan. You know, how can we get a decent TV deal with Neil Doncaster negotiating for it? What's the truth, Phil? He's not negotiating with anyone. There's no other offer on the table.
No other.
He's only managed to sell the product that well that the only option is Sky. This is not a negotiating thing. Sky offer whatever they offer, and we have to take it. And that's why we've signed up for 7 years, because it just kicks that can down the road a wee bit further, that they don't need to worry about it again. Because deep down, the fact of the matter is, Alan, they do not have two TV companies bidding for it at the same time. There's only one show in town willing to actually put money into the game, so they have to accept what they're given. And if the Scottish Cup doesn't have a sponsor, Stubbsy, and you think the Bhoycie Bus Scottish Cup would work, let's get involved.
The ED Pharmacy Scottish Cup. There you go. There's your sponsor. Get that sorted. The Pie Sports Scottish Cup. Come on.
There you go.
Get it sorted. Get it done.
That'd be brilliant.
It'd be fantastic. It would be. It would. But before we move on to some moments now, I've got a few more wee facts that I found about the Scottish Cup along the way. Of course, Celtic's first win the Scottish Cup was 1892. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to talk about that in any great detail because I know nothing about that as well. But our first major trophy was 1892 Scottish Cup. The last time, obviously, we won it was 2020, one that we a year that we tried to remember, or to try not to remember. The 0 fans in attendance, the free draw with Hearts, the elongated Scottish Cup campaign because the season before basically got canned early because of the coronavirus outbreak. But yeah, there was that one that obviously bled into the 10 in a row season. That was our last Scottish Cup. But in terms of like in recent history, we're on a good run in Scottish Cup finals. We've played 11 this century. We have won 10 and lost 1. The last time we lost was 2002, 3-2 loss to Rangers when Peter Lovenkrands scored the late goal. We try not to remember that one. But overall, our record in this century has been fantastic in the Scottish Cup final, and hopefully that continues again tomorrow. And another wee fun fact before we move on is out of all the teams that have won it multiple times, the team that waited the longest for their next honour was, of course, Hibs, who won it in 1902 and had to wait till 2016, 114 years, when along came Rangers to become that pub quiz answer forevermore. Who ended Hibs Scottish Cup hoodoo? It was Rangers. They are the answer to that pub quiz for many, many years to come. But now, as you said, they're about a good run with the Scottish Cup. Let's get some of the bad things that they like, because obviously since we got to the final, and obviously who our opponents are, I've seen it a lot in the chat. We've been talking about the Scottish Cup final coming up, and this name, it's a name that sends shudders up the spine of many Celtic fans, because obviously we are playing Inverness Caledonian Thistle, who we have a quite mixed history with in the Scottish Cup. I mean, me personally, I don't think it will be a factor tomorrow, and I think we will dispose them. But yes, along the way, we have had some clangers against Inverness. But one of the things that I think has got to get taken into consideration, I know, I've seen it come up in a live chat, people saying, I don't take anything for granted after things like what's happened to teams like Inverness in the past. But Liam, you've got to remember as well, those 3 losses that we've had to Inverness in the Scottish Cup this century, there's got a bit of context to each of them as well, that a lot of people just seem to look at the result, the black and white of it. So obviously the first one is the Barnes one, where again, you look at the context of it, that was a broken dressing room, a manager that clearly lost his team, and the team had lost faith in the manager, and it was just like the perfect storm just came together that night. If I'm right in saying as well, I think the 2003 one that gets brought up, where Martin O'Neill was it was the Seville season, and we're going for 4 trophies at that point. Am I right in saying he might have fielded a weakened side, but should still have been good enough to beat Inverness? But I've got visions like Jamie Smith not playing in that game that night. I could be completely wrong, but I think he might have played a sort of, his priorities were more, we want to win the league title and we're going for this UEFA Cup, the Scottish Cup and the League Cup, whatever. And then, of course, the one in 2015, the Ronnie one that he missed out on a potential treble, the Josh Meeking's handball. We were winning that game quite comfortably, 1-0. Things actually didn't necessarily turn on the handball. There was a penalty that they got early in the second half where Craig Gordon gets sent off and we're down to 10 men. And Lucas Zaluska, I mean, he was okay in short spells, but yeah, he came on and everything just seemed to go through him that day. So there's a bit of context where it's not like Inverness were outstanding in all of these games. It feels like, there's a few factors to it as well. And we've got to take them into consideration with those 3 defeats.
You just leave the games with a sick feeling in your stomach, don't you? Because I felt everything. It wasn't just those big decisions, it was every wee decision, and it just seemed like we could not get it going. And again, it's like, here we are, we're celebrating another team that knows how to stop something rather than play any type of football themselves. It's like they'd figured out how to stop it. They couldn't add anything to it, They had some advantage, and they were going to just hoof the ball up the park continuously and hope for a break. And next thing you know, we're out. And again, that decision for the handball. It was the first game with the extra referee who was standing right there looking.
Right. Like was.
Unbelievable.
What the ball contest you would ever see in your life. He's looking right at it, on the line 6 feet away, and he was there to make the extra big decisions and the big calls. And I just felt horrible that day because it felt like just been a wee bit ripped off. I didn't think Inverness Caledonia had won anything.
Aye. Stephen McLean and Andrew Dallas, wasn't it? One of them was behind the goal and one of them was a man in the middle. I can't remember which way it was round, but it was they two that were at the heart of it.
Was it the same season as the Dundee United debacle?
The Dundee United debacle, which one?
Same, the one where they were basically whispering each other and cheating, and had to admit that he told them to lie.
Oh no, that was a good few seasons before that. That was
not?
Lenny's first season. That was Dougie McDonald, who did that
And
one.
Inverness, was that Ronnie?
Inverness was Ronnie's first season, semi-final.
I had that was Lennon. I just put these, I suppose, stereotyping it a bit. Sorry.
I know, it's just like, let's see, we were winning that game comfortably, that one. We were beating them 1-0 at half time. Yeah, we should have got the penalty before the half, but going in the second half, we were still controlling the game. But they got a breakaway for a corner, left Craig Gordon completely exposed, just one-on-one with the striker. He mistimed his attempt to get the ball. And yeah, he gets sent off with out of 10 men, and yeah, it was a Luska in goal. Unfortunately, he just wasn't that great a keeper, and everything just seemed to go through him that day. But Russell, you might be better to remember this one. I see it being a Martin O'Neill one. See that loss to Inverness that I'm talking about, the 2003 one. Was it a sort of second string team? I can look it up just now and see if I can find. But again, it's that thing that we talk about where Martin O'Neill was like Scottish Cup, we've got bigger fish to fry. You know, I know people bring it up. So I mean, the record books do show that Inverness did beat us that night, but in the grand scheme of things that season,
who was the team, Phil?
I'll have a wee look. Now, mate. I'll tell you.
One of those were regulars looking back.
Have a wee gander. I'll try and find it.
Well, it was interesting because if you remember, and I think this might have been O'Neill's first or second season, we went to Tynecastle in either the League Cup or the Scottish Cup, pumped them. I think it was about 4-0. But Stephen Craney played that day, stuff like that. And I think O'Neill had set his stall out pretty early that if he's going to be able to bring youth players through, he's going to use the cups for it. His priority was to overhaul the league. Then once he won the league, his priority was the league and Europe, and the cups came second. Now, obviously, I think when you get to the Scottish Cup final, we're not going to lie, it is, you want to be there, right? You fucking want to be there. And I'm so glad we're in it this season. I am. But I understand it from the viewpoint as a season goes on, when you have to prioritise. 5-2 says Alistair Jack. Good memory, big man.
Nice.
But that was a team that even then you looked at and thought, wow. And I think these risks that O'Neill was taking are calculated in the sense that there is a priority list here that we need to focus on. And if you want a memory like Seville, or you want 9 points in a Champions League group in my second season, then that means there has to be sacrifice made. Because going on all four fronts with a budget, and even though his budget was fantastic at that time for Celtic, what he'd inherited wasn't the best. So I just don't think you'll ever have a squad. You do have a squad, I suppose, big enough, but to rotate it and keep it all fresh, you're going to need to take gambles at times and use some of the second string or youth players. And if that means it's the cups, so be it. It was a shift in attitude, that, Phil, which I think now, if we're being honest, now you think how starved the trophies we were at this point, and he's got the audacity to be taking risks in his first season, playing Hearts, beating them 5-2. Okay, we won 5-2, but taking those risks in that fixture at Tynecastle, what are you doing? Right. And you couldn't do that now because the current wave and the current generation, which I'm sure we'll touch on, is now all in on trebles and almost taking them for granted. I think they are special things, but I also think one of their unique places are because the uniqueness, if you like, about a treble is the chances are if we're going for trebles for a European campaign, compare and contrast. How many times we won a treble and had a compelling European campaign? And what one's the bold happier for you to focus your attention on?
Yeah.
It's just being honest. It's just being honest.
I found that team, Liam, from that game. So this is the team that started against Inverness that night. Sanchez Broto was in goal. Valharan, Varga, and Ulrich Lawson were the back three. Jamie Smith, Neil Lennon, Jackie McNamara, David Fernandez, and Steve Guppy with the midfield. And Sean Maloney and Henrik Larsson started up front. So a bit of a mixed bag there. Obviously, guys like Larsson and Valharan, Lennon being in there, all first teamers without a doubt. But yeah, like Jamie Smith, Ulrich Lawson getting a game, Steve Guppy, David Fernandez.
I don't remember Guppy getting many competitive games back then. I remember he showed up once or twice at the very beginning, and that was just a thanks to Stevie.
Because he joined 2001 in the summer, and he was already 32 then. So he's now, by 2003, he's approaching 34. He was used sparingly by then, you're right. So if he's in the team, David Fernandez only made about 10 starts for Celtic in the whole time he was there. So,
I think
you know what I mean? For that to be one of them.
Got people, these good people that could play O'Neill's system really well. And so to bring a guy like that into training, that you've got a guy that people can watch and just, Stevie, show them what I'm talking about. Bang, 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 run a pattern, whatever it was. I think you see that way. Those older guys used to bring in old pros like that. You used to come with them. It was an extra coach on the park.
Well, as we found out the other day, was it Matt Elliott was doing an interview saying how close he was to joining Celtic as well.
Why?
Matt Elliott, yeah, I mean, he looks like he's had more dragon soups than me. He had the glazed eyes. And but Matt Elliott, I mean, he would have been another one, 32, 33 when he was going to join. And that was, I think, the exact same example. They'll go, this is what I'm looking for from you. Here's the template. Here's the example. And then in a year's time, you'll be the guy playing it, and he'll be Ovsky. Do you know what I mean? But I think
Liam, did you see the clip of Matt Elliott talking about how he nearly joined Celtic? Did you see it on social media the other week? He was doing a podcast, and his agent obviously met with the club to discuss Matt's terms, and then his agent says, "I'll phone you, say 2:30, whatever," and bang on 2:30, his phone rings, but it wasn't his agent at the other end. It was Martin O'Neill had taken the phone, and he's like, "Hello, is this Zinedine fucking Zidane that I'm talking to?" Because yes, the Matt Elliott's agent must have been asking for obscene money for a 32-year-old Matt Elliott. I think we signed Bobo Baldi instead that summer. But yeah, that's I can only imagine what he must have been asking for then for Martin O'Neill to say that. Jesus Christ.
That's so good, eh? That's O'Neill to a T. Is that Zinedine Zidane I'm speaking to? You cheeky wee shite.
Oh man, that's how close we were to getting them. But I very nearly could have been part of that Leicester contingent that came up here to join Guppy and Lennon. But yeah, you're right about Guppy. He only played a handful of games. At times he looked alright, but yeah, this is one of the few games that he did play. And as Russell said, but David Fernandez played about 10 games for Celtic, and yeah, this is one of the ones, unfortunately, for him. But so hopefully we do not see anything like that tomorrow, and there's none of this Super Cali headlines getting printed tomorrow. Obviously, we've had a few other bad results in the years of the Scottish Cup in my lifetime. Anyway, Ross County beating us in a semi-final. Clyde, obviously, we talked about that one. The Dewey, Roy Keane game. Falkirk beat us in 97 after we did the hard work of putting Rangers out the round before. Then bloody Falkirk beat us in a semi-final. But hopefully there are no issues with that tomorrow, and we just go out and we get the job done. But let's move on now to some positive memories, and I think we'll do a wee bit of I was there, because Russell, we'll talk about one that I know you were definitely there for, and it's one that I featured on the thumbnail because it's a big one. You were at the 2004 Scottish Cup final, Henrik Larsson's big send-off. A nice sunny day as well. So we'll talk about at the top of the show about the weather, and it was a beautiful day that day. Am I right saying that Dunfermline took the lead? Was it?
Yes, Skerla.
I nearly said Velichka there. It was Andreas Skerla.
1975.
There you go.
Andreas Skerla. He scored the first. Remember, bear in mind, I was in the Dunfermline end as well.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Aye. So what's happened is, I was going out with this girl at high school, Katrina, and her dad was like, he directed and wrote Taggart and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, he had pals in the right places, right? So when he wanted to, Dunfermline were going, I'm sure tickets weren't that difficult to get, but he got like fucking 20, right? And they've never thought to say to us, right? The morning of the game, I get a phone call on the landline, obviously, fucking Katrina phoned me first. Are you doing anything today? I'm like, I must have been 17. No, 16. And I'm like, yeah, I'm watching the cup final. She goes, do you want to come? We're all getting a bus through. So we all got a bus through in the pub before it. Everyone drinking pints. Not me, sadly. They wouldn't go that far, which is a shame. But I mean, just kept getting caught up in the atmosphere of it all, and it was brilliant. And then I'm obviously watching it completely, like Henrik's last game. I've been greeting about him 3 weeks before that, as I've told you before, because he'd done the whole bubbling thing in the park after the last league game where we beat Dundee United 2-1. So I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to be Henrik Larsson's last game. This is unbelievable. And Dunfermline scored, and I'm like, oh, no. Yeah, you know when you go to a gig and you have to like mime the words because you don't know the words? That was me
Mhm.
with the Dunfermline songs. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, if anyone looks at me, I'm like...
Oh, wow.
And yeah, Dunfermline scored. I'm like, no fucking way. And I always think, if you look back at that, this is the difference between the special players and the really, really good players. Now, McGregor, I think, did it recently. I called it McGregor's moment at Ibrox, where he decided he was changing the whole narrative and the whole perception of a football match single-handedly when he dribbled far. And we got a goal at the end of it. The goal was irrelevant. The whole momentum shift had been done already, even if we didn't score at the end of it, which fortuitously we did. But I believe that Henrik, there's a switch in these guys, and he goes, for want of a better expression, he goes, fuck this. And when Henrik decides to do that, with the ability he's got, he can change movie scripts like that. Henrik decided, not on my last game, you don't. And if you look at that first goal, there's something incredible about it where he actually looks across the goal before he curls it as if he's going to square it. And that's why still he actually looks like he's made quite a shite effort to save it. But it's the head. What Henrik's done there, it's not just on the curler in the far corner. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful. But watch what he does before it. He's almost looking away and then just at the last second focuses where he's putting the ball. It's so clever and it's quite almost unnoticeable. And he's doing it all at pace because it's a breakaway, remember? It's a big Sutton ball. Sutton has played the big ball, the big quarterback pass. And then Henrik doing that. It's just a wee look to the right and that sells the keeper. And no wonder, by the way, because it just looks so genuine. He's squaring the ball and then he curls it home. And once he's did that, the second always comes, you know. Once you get as he said after the Dundee United game, once you get the first, you don't miss the second. And that is so true. And the second one, you know, with the other foot, just don't get too tight to me. He got tight to me. Larson will spin you every single day. And if you need to find the side netting, and I mean the inside of the side netting, Henrik's your boy for that, right? That left foot shot doesn't look like it's the cleanest strike in the world. It's precision, and it's on the spin, and it leaves the goalie with absolutely no chance yet again. And Petrov wraps it up. What an afternoon. And of course, Katrina's family were acutely aware of where my allegiances lied. And they were kind enough to let me, we'll all stay and we'll watch them. In fact, see, to be fair, this is one wee memory I've got. And I like Dunfermline as a town anyway. Do you know how many of the fans stayed to watch Henrik lift that trophy? So many, mate. And all of them clapping, going, what a fucking player he is. You've got just so many folk, and I'm not talking about folk we were with necessarily. So many fans, mate. Like, obviously, loads left, but so many stayed. And it was almost like to pay their respects, not because he's died, but just they knew it was the last time you're going to see him in Scotland. And there was almost that mark of respect that could not be helped, even if they wanted to. Couldn't not be. I was just like, what a guy we've just watched there, you know. And remember the hoops got pulled on for it as well. Remember they
did.
Away, and then they put the hoops on, and I think it's Henrik and Jackie McNamara lifted the cup.
They did.
But getting to watch that live meant the world to me. I didn't go to many Celtic games. I still don't. And being at that, you know, my absolute idol for the last 7 years and watching him just flip one more time a game on its head single-handedly, just like he did against Boa Vista, just like he twice attempted to do against Porto, just like he did against them when we beat them 5-1, scoring 2 with Lubo scoring 2, just like he did in the green and whitewash years when he was so decisive in so many of these games. He still wrote the script right to the last, and I just think that's so cool, and I'm very, very grateful that I was able to be in the presence of the King of Kings in his final hoorah.
Oh, yes. Well, Liam, you've worked in the film and TV industry. Is that just the perfect Hollywood ending for Henrik that day? The way it all, perfect sunshine to score 2 goals or losing the game as well, and for him to turn it around. It was Hollywood, wasn't it?
It was right down to the tears at the end. He couldn't even hold it together. He was just brilliant in it, you know, Field the Dream stuff. Their entire club's written like that. You know, I look at the stuff that follows us around, you know, it's crazy. You know, people who are friends of mine and stuff like don't know about Celtic, but they know about Celtic, and you know, they'll say, "Oh, I was at Roger Waters' show the other night, and They showed all the football team with all these Palestinian flags and all that. That's your team, right? Yeah, that's my team. How'd they get up on that? You know, it's like, oh, I don't know, just that's who we are. You know, and you see that popping up in all sorts of stuff. You know, Snoop Dogg jumping out of limos with Celtic strips on, or you know, or people, you know, showing up in films with Celtic tattoos and stuff. It's just great. I don't think you get other teams like that. You know, that's why it should be much easier to sell the Scottish Cup. I mean, you're talking to Hollywood. Listen to that story Russell just told. That's a Hollywood story in itself as well. That's Jimmy Grimble. That's something like that. And so to market effectively, you got to be good storytellers. And the Scottish Cup is the oldest football cup on the planet. And our marketing guys, can he tell a good story? Can he tell a better story than Russell? If not, get Russell to tell that story. Chop that up into segments. Put some moody music to it. We'll get, I don't know, Teenage Fan Club or something, or Mogwai to do something. You know, put that in the back. You know, throw some visuals in behind it. Let that be a marketing strategy for the Scottish Cup. Let it be storytelling. You know, see what it means to the people with football per capita. Is the most popular game on the planet. Nobody goes to see more football per capita than Scottish people.
We've got him. We want him tonight, Phil. We've put 10 pence in Liam at that point. He's just been sitting there. He's sitting there tonight going, I'm raging at that, actually. That's just stupid that we can't get a sponsor for it. And you're spot on. I mean, I think sometimes these stories, was that celebrated enough that one of Europe's leading marksmen decided to play peak years in Scotland and wrote scripts in finals where he could have been writing it, by the way, in the final that could have clashed with it, could not have, that will be shown in BBC Scotland, but not in, you know, and certainly in the English BBC or the British BBC channel. Henry could have been doing that the FA Cup final that year without a problem. But he was doing it in the Scottish Cup final, you know, at his peak. Yeah. And I just think when you look back, you just go, that is what it's all about. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that is, to me, that's not a difficult sell. When you start reminiscing about stuff like that, that's something that any sponsor, for example, or broadcaster goes, oof, do you think there'll be more scripts like that written? And you say, well, you need to invest to find out. But you want your name on those ribbons. Trust me, if you get a story like that, you want, if Henrik Larsson's lifting that in 2004, it to be your brand. You want it to be ED Pharmacy written on that ribbon, or piesports.com. You want it to be that, though, because you've now just became, whether you like it or not, synonymous with a moment in time. In the most popular sport in the country and the most popular supported national sport in Europe. Like, who doesn't want the ribbon on that? There's so much evidence of what Liam's saying. It's crazy.
It's true.
I'm sure it would take you 10 minutes to phone around and get a crypto company. No problem.
Probably,
you know, you just have to approach it in the right way. I've done this sort of stuff before, you know, and it just seems to me that makes no sense that you can't find that. And the other thing is, even with the staggered time, you've got one of the biggest lead-in the world. It's Man United, Man City, FA Cup in England. That builds you up a pre-audience, and you sell it off the back of that. You know?
No, definitely.
I'm shocked that wasn't the tactics, you know.
It says the Scottish FA at their absolute finest. Just a quick point, Bhoycie, on that final. Who was it Dunfermline defender? Was it named Labont or Lafont that Henrik just terrorised all game? Because the ball for Sutton, he's running alongside this defender, and obviously he just controls the ball, and the guy completely loses his footing. And it's the same defender that he turns for the second goal, but his name was, I think, Labont or either Lafont. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but he
usually get something like that.
He ruins him that day. He just on both his goals. I say the first one though, you're right, the Sutton pass, and he's watching it over his shoulder, and he just takes one touch. I see the defender completely loses his footing. It's that touch just kills it, and it's that run when he's just got to pick the spot. And you've seen Larsson do it so many times. He opens his body and bends in. I mean, I don't know if you remember as well. Obviously, a year ago, we were championing the Jordan Larsson idea of being at Celtic. I remember there was highlights videos of Jordan Larsson at Spartak Moscow, and there's a goal that he scores, and it's his dad all over, the way he opens his body and he bends it around the goalkeeper into the corner, and it's just like, just runs in the family. It's just watching it. My first thought was, that's like the 2004 Scottish Cup final. the first goal that comes to mind. You just see it again in my head with that. The way he scored it against Dunfermline that day. But yeah, his technique, the way he did that. But that first goal, say one touch, watching it over his shoulder the entire time, a good 50, 60-yard pass, and just to control it the way he does, cool as you like, composure, just cause you can't say enough good things about Henrik Larsson. You just can't.
Oh, I know. A crazy season as well, because it still felt like we'd underachieved in Europe, if you remember, and that's because we went out in the quarterfinals.
Aye.
Yeah, we went out in the quarterfinals to Villarreal. Who did they go on and win it?
2004 was Valencia.
Because it was centre in midfield.
It was Valencia.
They
won it
did
that
well
year.
anyway. Fair enough.
Well, we did beat Barcelona the round before. So.
And it's like, yeah, it still felt like double this year, you know, because I think everyone's focus had shifted, and that's what needs to happen again with Celtic in the current time. Is you need to start shifting your focus away from the domestic stuff and being delighted when you win Scottish Cup finals and being able to remember them, but always remembering that got to beat Europe, but we should have done better. And that was us. It was the last time we won a knockout round, and we were disappointed that year. We've not won a knockout round since, and we were disappointed at where we exited Europe that year. Squad needs a revamp. Do you know what I mean? Just put it in Barcelona. It needs a revamp. We'd have a squad dining on that for the next 5 years. Do you know what I mean? And a supporter base probably happy to dine out on it for the next 5 years as well. If we put out any team of that sort of repute in a knockout round in Europe. Do you know what I mean? It's funny how the focus has shifted a wee bit. I think there's a lot of comfort blanket stuff with the domestic scene, and there's a lot of uncomfortable truths you need to face when you're in Europe. And I think then everyone was all in, to steal a term, that we could do something in Europe, and it'd be good to get back to that.
It would. I remember we dropped into that UEFA Cup that year, and after being in the final the year before, I felt like we can go on and do this again, especially after we beat Barcelona. It's freaky. It'll be 20 years in 2024 since the last time we won a knockout game. If we're still in Europe after Christmas, which I hope to God we are, and I hope we make amends for that. But yeah, that's how long we're talking there. It needs to be amended. But you're right about that, where there was a sort of disappointment back then, 2003, 2004. So I remember it myself. Now, we're heading up to the hour, so what I'll do is we'll take a quick break. When we come back, so we're doing a wee sort of I was there thing. Now, Liam, you mentioned it about a month ago when we were doing a show. You were at a very specific Scottish Cup game, a very monumental one in Celtic's history. But we'll talk about that. So we'll do a wee 2-minute break now to get a comfort break, to refill water, whatever. And when we come back, yeah, Liam, you can tell us again all about that one that you were at, because yeah, there's obviously a few viewers that might not have seen that one from a few weeks ago. Because yeah, I say for people who don't know, Liam was at a very, very important game in Scottish football history. So yeah, I'll put up a wee picture of. I'll just go back to let's see. Yeah, we can't do the music for obvious reasons at the moment. So I just put a picture of what we're hoping to get our hands on tomorrow for the next 2 minutes. Old Scottish Cup, and yeah, we'll be back in a couple of minutes, guys.
Right.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. So, Liam, Mr. Greenlaw, you were at a very, very monumental cup for another sunny day, another bright sunny day from the archive footage that I've seen. The sun was
to this.
definitely split in the sky that day. All the highlights that I've seen of this one. So yeah, Liam, what cup final were you at that was very significant in Scottish football history?
Hi, May 9, 1980. I was at the Hampden riot. So, Celtic Rangers. My first Celtic Rangers game, by the way, as well. My only cup final I've ever been to. I never get back in May usually. But that's the only cup final I've ever been to. And, I remember it was tense and that during the day, but the sun was really warm. It was like 80, 85 degrees. And it was crazy. I was at a Holy Communion in the morning. One of my wee nieces or that. And so I had a suit and a shirt and a tie on, and my two uncles with me. One of them's 6'6", the other one's about 6'2". They're both wearing shirt and ties. And I managed to get a hold of my mum and get a jumper and a denim jacket from her. And she just grabbed the first thing she'd seen. And one of my cousins or something, it was like the most red, white, and blue rangery looking jersey seen in your life, right? Just screamed, stab me, bottle me. And then I says, I'm not wearing that. And so she had a denim jacket. So I grabbed the denim jacket, put that on top. So I couldn't take my denim jacket off. And it was about like 85, 90 degrees. It was crazy how warm it got in the sun. And then that just created the tensions. And we went into extra time. And George McCluskey fucking rattled one in and fucking bedlam. We guys ran on the park just sort of celebrating, and didn't look too bad. They ran out of the Rangers end, and there was a marching band in front of them that had been playing at half time from American students, and all the Bears were jumping near the top of them to go and take around the park. And the games got changed back down to the Celtic end, and then they all just started jumping about and all that. And you might see, like, the gear was mental back then. Guys were dressed like Bay City Rollers back then. Look at some of the guys.
Tartan trousers,
denims, like 42-inch flares and stuff like that. Like, crazy looking. Some young people go and have a look at it. It's like, it's comical as well as it's funny. It's like weird fashion fighting footage, It's like, I mean, how you can't sell this for Scottish football? I don't know. Everybody was fighting that day. And that's what happened. And then Celtic guys came onto the pitch as well. And then the last thing I remember, we were watching all this from the stand because we couldn't get out. And it's just bedlam. We think that, it's all kicking off everywhere. And then the police were out with all the horses and that. And it was just bedlam getting home that night. And everything got shut down. I was trying to get back to Castlemilk. And none of the taxis go up there, none of the buses were running up there. And so it was like Warriors, if you've ever seen that film where they're trying to get back to Coney Island. That was us trying to get back to Castlemilk, but we managed to, stop in every Tim pub on the way through Rutherglen and up the
Oh, that's amazing.
Back up final,
Oh, well, I'd say it's monumental because obviously the scenes at the end of it has resulted in a band that's still in place to this day, Liam.
Liam got the baby band.
He did. It was Liam's fault. It was. But is it though insane though that we're this far on, and other sports around Scotland are still they're fine for people who consume alcohol. I know there's been talk recently that Celtic are trying to make moves to have like a safe drinking area and stuff like that, but it's mental that one game has basically resulted in a booze ban at football across Scotland since will that be now 43 years? Oh, geez, man, 43 years now it will be. But yeah, crazy stuff. But I suppose you add in the tension of that day, guys drinking, hot weather, Celtic v Rangers, late goal in extra time. Because again, from seeing the archive footage, I think Danny McGrain sort of scuffs a shot from the edge of the area that's not going in. And George McCluskey sticks a leg out and just deflects it into the other corner. And totally wrong foots the keeper. And I guess it's just that sort of euphoria, that eruption. But I mean, here we are, Liam. And again, we're talking about marketing and stuff like that tonight. And how do you feel about that this far on, that they're still so precious about banning that, unbanning it, whatever? So you think it'll ever get lifted? Do you think there'll be like a sort of safe environment, or I say safe environment, but I see Celtic are trying to have a safe area for drinking alcohol, but really, is it that bad?
Well, I mean, I've been to other countries in the world that have crowd trouble as well, and they're still drinking in the stadium and that. And it's nothing like the reaction we get to it in Scotland. I mean, England's got very, very, much more history crowd violence problem than what we do. They don't have the sectarian label to it, so somehow it's whitewashed in a way that it doesn't seem to be as alarmingly violent as ours, because ours is religious violence, so that's completely different than Preston versus Bradford for some reason.
Do you know what it is? It's a sorry excuse for answers they don't want to face up to. There is undeniable. I think the word sectarian gets used left, right, and centre. I think Neil Lennon did a fantastic press conference once. I think it was Hibs manager at the time. He says, "Call it for what it is. It's anti-Irish racism. Why are we not allowed to say that?" And again, that tells you a wee bit like there's an elephant in the room of facing up to what these issues are that ripple underneath. Now, there is an element the other way around. Of course there is, and we need to accept that. And I can understand why a lot of families are maybe upset, if you like, about IRA chanting and stuff like that. But this is the undercurrent, right? But no one wants to face up to what the issues are between those two sets of supporters. So if you can find a label like alcohol to pin it all on, when you've got no control over stadiums that would be so easy to manage, think of the benefit for these clubs. Again, it's just incredible. It's 100% for me an easy, a comforting, and a very lazy narrative that they're very keen to push because it dodges any awkward questions, any home truths that can be addressed. It gives them that bailout. They can just say, "Oh, well, it was the alcohol that did it." No, there's an underrooted problem here. Let's start talking about that. Let's start getting that in, and what you'd love to ask these people is, do you think they're not drinking at the games now? Do you think they're not drunk when they go into the games now? Do you think you've put a lid on the whole drinking thing? No, and you've not. However, you ban the alcohol, so it looks like you've took some sort of moral, principled stand against football hooliganism, as it were. But the reality is, the alcohol aspect of it is only hampering potential revenue streams for football clubs desperately needing it. And we'll go back to the top of the show, in the best supported league per capita in Europe, and it can't make the dime it should be from bad management at the top getting sponsors, bad management at the not being able to get a good TV deal, and bad governance that want to blame alcohol for everything wrong in the country, as opposed to accepting what the reality is. And that revenue stream would be just as vital to these clubs on a match day basis as what any sort of sponsorship for a cup would be. Because remember, you're only getting a wee slice of the pie then, and it's all divided up. Imagine if you've only got, I don't know, you're David Martindale at Livingston, and there's only 2,000 at your home game. 1,000 then buy a pint. 1,000, that's extra £6,000.
Yeah.
What's that for Livingston? What's that? Another week's wages paid for about 5-6 players? More than that, 7-8 players. Do you know what I mean? You're going, fucking, what are we talking about here? And that'd be week to week. Then the standard goes up. This is all for me just a complete cop out, the alcohol thing, and it's something I'm quite passionate about, because when I was in the licensed trade, I was constantly at odds with the rules that the government were bringing out, and it's the Scottish government, and it would be the hiking of tax. That it was forcing me to put up pints. I think one year I had to go up by 15, and I always tried to do it. If I could just hit my profit margin a wee bit and negate having to put up the price too big, because I was always scared about a dramatic jump. I think one year I had to put it up by 15-20 pence, and I was like, "Fuck this, man!" And you would look at the supermarkets, and you're going to the stage where I went, they're claiming that there's responsible selling, they've changed the rules there because basically you can't do a buy two, get one free anymore. All the supermarkets just went, fine, we'll sell 3 for 20 quid and we'll just put them on special at fucking £7 each or just shy of £7 each. Still get your 3 for 20 quid. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what are you talking about how that's helping anyone? But these big fat cats are getting richer. People are going home drinking unsupervised, like they are going to football right now. So you're just sculling them. Whereas if you're in a licensed premise, and that would be the same at football, there need to be a licensee there. And, you know, on each stall, there'd be a licensee present who's not going to risk their license first and foremost by selling a drunk person a drink. It's far better to be supervised buying your alcohol than buying it and then tanning it all unsupervised. And that frustrates me, that stuff. And I just feel that I know I've went off for a wee bit of a rant, but it just frustrates the life out of me that they think the answer to the solution, or the solution to the problem, I should say, is no alcohol, no problems. Same problems still arise. It's just bullshit. It's bullshit. It's because they cannot face up to the reality. And as I say, it's something I'm passionate about because I was constantly getting hamstrung in an era where I looked around my pub and I thought, there's nowhere better for an 18-year-old laddie or lassie to be coming, watching live music in an environment that's rocking with real people that would look out for them, that are years above. Do you know what I mean? Real guys who've seen the world, seen she's, maybe, a wee bit tipsy or she's fell out with her pal overnight, and real people make sure she gets a taxi up the road, etc. You watch the difference in folk staggering up to a football match right now having drank in the house. And I think you see the difference if they've went, do you want to just get to the game an hour before kickoff, get a couple of pints? Night and day, mate. Night and day. And people would want to. Do you know why? Because they want to sample the atmosphere. They want to be a part of it. And suddenly the pre-match carry-out culture that this alcohol ban has brought in actually will slightly, I'm not saying it's black and white, by the way, I get that, but it will slightly ease up a bit because people will be going, well, fuck on, you're a bit before it, mate. I'll get you the bus stop and then we'll just head up to the ground an hour before kick off. And in a supervised environment where it's £5-6 a pint, guess what? You're drinking less.
Yeah.
Right? You are. And you're sampling atmosphere. How much better and more colourful a way is that to support your team then? And I'm guilty of it. If I'm going to Celtic Park, I'm like on the bus too. Bevy. But if you said, why don't we just go for one Bhoycie? Because they open up like the bars like 2 hours before kickoff. About right then, Phil, we'll just get you then. Far more appealing to me. Far more appealing. So stuff like that.
Well, I've been a season holder since 2007. Been a lot of Celtic Rangers games that have kicked off at lunchtime. The amount of fans that I've seen coming out the stadium that absolutely bevied at that time in the day. It's not making a difference, you see, they just tan the booze before they even go in. But say it's just one of these answers that they've just used for years and years, and people have said in the chat it's something that's used to beat football fans over the head with, other sports are allowed. But yeah, there we go. We've got Liam to blame for that one, folks. He was there. He was responsible. He was on the park, giving it all day. He was there. Fight with them.
Did you scalp anyone there?
We're still selling beer in North America, so I've not wrecked it for everybody, right?
That's why you're over there.
Okay,
it all makes sense now. It all makes sense.
Oh, mate, we've got a baseball park here that has like this junior baseball as well, like the franchise league, and they've got a pub owned by one of the breweries right in it. And we used to go there once a year, and you're basically on the park practically watching baseball, sitting there getting drunk at picnic tables, and absolutely brilliant. Scotland, I don't know, we have to look at what North America's doing. Like New York's a no more crazier place than Glasgow is. So you can't say that we've got this culture of violence and craziness and all that. New York's got all that, and they still sell beer. And if you want to see what a Celtic Rangers game looks like with New York and New York accents, go watch a Rangers Devils games. I'm sure there's maybe somebody from New York one here will back me up. You want to see crazy, the stuff they're screaming at each other, the fights you get in the stands and the foyers and all that. Crazy stuff. And so, but that's never seen as a bit, it just ends up in World Star Hip Hop or TMZ or something, they get the mad government backlash and, oh no, we can't sell alcohol now. And it's like, no, we've already got laws for people that do those sort of things, and we just apply that to them. We don't have to make a whole different set of laws and apply it to other fans that didn't do anything because they want to drunk and fighting with each other, you know? So, anyway.
It's utter hiding, mate. It's just hiding behind a fucking excuse that does not stand up. Its weight just doesn't stand up. I don't know how we're talking about this, but it's so
because
annoying.
1980 Scottish Cup final,
well, of course.
that's why.
I don't know, we went
stimulus.
so deep on it. We went so deep on it, but it's like, it just annoys the life out of me that they get away again with that dinosaur attitude. Well, since, you know, it's been like this. It's always been like this. You just can't drink because drink causes all the problems. No, mate.
No.
Look a wee bit more 3D at things and you'll find out what the actual problems are, you know?
Oh, definitely will. But we'll continue on with the I was there, because mine's is a bit opposite to yours in the sense that you guys get really nice, like sunny days for yours. But my favourite Scottish Cup memory that I actually attended was it's quite an obvious one, but I think the rain and the thunderstorm in the air sort of added to it, to be fair, and it's quite an obvious one. But naturally, it's 2017. It's the Invincible treble season. It's the climax to one of the most incredible seasons I've ever experienced in person. Just that, I'd say, the Invincible treble. You know, we've won up to that point. We'd won 3 trebles: 1967, 69, and 2001. So Brendan Rodgers obviously comes in, and after Ronnie's second season, you know, even though we won the league, it was bare minimum what we were supposed to do. That season, we'd lost to Rangers in the Scottish Cup semi-final the season before, and that was quite embarrassing, given they were a first division team at the time. And obviously he comes in, and yeah, he had the ground running, and domestically, and we were just powering through everybody. And you know, you're getting to a certain point. I think it was after, you know, tanking Rangers 5-1 in there was 2 5-1 games that season. But obviously, when you do them at Ibrox and there's 4 or 5 games left, you're just like, we can do an Invincible season here. This is actually on the cards, because I can remember 2004 that Martin O'Neill's team that season were pretty close to an Invincible season. It was actually the same year that Arsenal did it in England, which would have been quite appropriate. Then Aberdeen rolled into town and stopped that. And then I think Neil Lennon had a season where he lost 1 league game as manager. And it's like, you know, the Invincible season just seemed to be something that we just couldn't do. But after the coast was clear after beating Rangers, I was like, we can do this here. Not only just in the league, we've already won the League Cup. You know, we're heading to the Scottish Cup final after beating Rangers in that semi-final. And that day, I didn't actually get tickets originally in the ballot, because the semi-final was a balloted one because we played Rangers. Because the way the system works with the season ticket holders and home cup ticket scheme is, if you get to a semi or a final where it goes to the ballot, then, you know, if the semi-final's been balloted, if you get one there, you will definitely get a ticket for the final. If it's something like, you know, you've had to buy your tickets first come, first serve for the semi-final, say you're playing somebody like Motherwell, so it's quite open to get tickets. But because we played Rangers, went to a ballot, and I never got any, so I knew when the final comes along, all the people that got a ticket for the Rangers game, they get one automatically. So that's half the stadium taken away. When Aberdeen are a team that can bring a half decent support with them, so naturally we missed out. There was a second ballot, still missed out. But late on in the day, late on in the sort of like run up to it, my dad, one of those, knows somebody that knows somebody that knows someone that happened to have 2 tickets spare. They weren't sitting next to each other neither. My dad was up in, now the south stand's got like a second tier. He was way up there, and I was down in the lower end of the south stand. And obviously just buzzing to be there, because you just felt like it was in there, like history was there to be made. Because I wasn't a season ticket holder when we last won the treble in 2001, so to be there, the chance of doing it Invincible as well was just like, oh, come on. But we got off to an absolutely stinking start. Remember, Johnny Hayes put them ahead after about 4 or 5 minutes. A volley at a corner kick as well, a pretty tidy finish. But I remember the boy who was sitting next to me, he was like just such a pessimistic guy. He was pure like panic-ridden all game. He's like, oh no, he's pure like when they scored, like, oh, we fucking come this far, man, we're going to fucking blow it. And it's like, mate, it's 5 minutes into the game. But of course, Stuart Armstrong, he gets equaliser like a minute later, and that just calms everybody down. But that second half was like, just like the proverbial boxing match. It was blow for blow. There was moments where Aberdeen caught us on the counter. I think is it Kenny McLean missed an open goal where Johnny Hayes runs up the wing. He dispossesses Callum McGregor. He squares it, and Kenny McLean completely scuffs it in front of goal. And it was like, well, we got off there, but then we were going up the park and having chances, hitting the post and stuff like that with Paddy Roberts. I'm sure he had one where he cut inside and bent it round. Scott Sinclair missed one for close range, and you're starting to think, is this going to come here? You know, is this actually going to happen? And but yeah, again, it's like what you said, Liam, with this sort of fairy tale that's around Celtic, where Hollywood, it's like the last game of the season, the last minute, the last kick, essentially, of the season. Tom Rogic, who came on as a sub that day after, you know, Kieran Tierney, you know, the boy that became a hero.
Play the Titanic music, will you, Phil?
Oh, mate, get the Titanic music on. Your ego goes off with a broken jaw. There's Jaden Stockley with the elbow. And I just start, because Rogic wasn't really in the game. When he came on, he never really had any impact in the game. He wasn't really looking into it. But he picks up the ball about 30, 40 yards out and breezes by about 3 Aberdeen players. And where I was sat in the stadium, this is a story that many people have told. Depending on where you were sat in the stadium, you could see it. Right before Rogic, just as he gets by Andy Constantine, who was the last defender that he had to go by, as he pulls his leg back to shoot, just over towards Tory Glen, there's the Asda at Tory Glen. I was in that direction because I was looking that way, sitting in the south stand. A bolt of lightning went across the sky, and it was one of those things that kind of caught my eye for half a second, where I kind of glanced up at the lightning, and when I glanced back down, the ball was in the net. It was like just as he hit the ball, the lightning going. It was like it was meant to be. It was just like one of these moments, divine intervention or something, what you want to call it, fate. It was a weird moment, but yeah, I just got distracted for a split second, and yeah, the ball was in the net and just absolute bedlam. See, the guy who was sitting next to me that was panic-stricken all game, he's just like absolutely, you know, just jumping up and down, you know, celebrating. You know, I barely know this guy, but that's what he does. I honestly was like close to tears at the end because it was pure emotion. Because that's what Celtic does to you. That's what football does to you. You know, you go through it, and then that feeling. Just seeing a treble in person, Invincible, last kick of the game, essentially. You've seen the animated GIF as well that's always done with the Craig Gordon celebrations, dropping to his knees and just that elation. He just fucking falls on his feet. He can't believe it's happened. And then, yeah, just the emotion at the end of it all was just unbelievable. And again, it's that thing, Liam, that you said, Hollywood, fairy tale. And that's what Celtic do, especially in Scottish Cup final day. There is just some sort of magic about it, and that was another one, wasn't it, mate?
Aye. Yeah, I think that's part of our identity as well, like going into cup finals and all that. It's like, what's wrong with imagining the best outcome? You know, thinking the best of your team all the time, being really positive about stuff like that, you know, and that's what you see a lot of, you know, Rangers fans and stuff let themselves down with, and some Celtic fans as well, but just getting too negative on things. You know, you got to imagine a really good outcome, and for some reason, we keep reinventing ourselves, and we keep, you know, even though we can still stay who we are, but we can reinvent ourselves in different versions of that. Like, you know, we you know, even if Ange does go, we'll be fine. You know, we'll still come back because I think we've got that magic. We've got that magic to we just see ourselves something a wee bit different. Not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to want this sort of thing. But when you're in it and you're invested in it, as you see, Phil, you see the magic in those moments of getting the tickets last minute and bolts of lightning shooting across the sky.
Unbelievable. You just can't write that.
Girlfriend, you know, unexpected and stuff like that. And it's, I don't know, I think that's the magic of being a Celtic fan. And that's what you look forward to. And, you know, and going into the Scottish Cup final as well. Other thing, I think we're going into the Cup final is, we've talked about earlier this week, is bragging rights. I always thought the bragging rights for the end of the season. You know, at the end of the day, that was the exclamation mark. That was the chapter. That was the big finish. That was a happy ending. It was like, all right, when you win the cup, that's who's setting intention for next year. We're the last ones to celebrate our party. That's it, done. It's done when we tell you it's done. You know, and I like that about going into a cup final and all that. And I hope that we remember that tomorrow as well, that, you know, bragging rights wasn't winning a game when you're playing, you know, people out of position and guys are like spent for doing everything you've asked them to do. That's no bragging rights. Bragging rights is tomorrow, showing up again and playing for a piece of silverware, you know, that you're up for and you've got a chance to take home and show to your fans tomorrow that, again, you're the champions in this as well as everything else.
And it was that Invincible treble that kicked off this run of amazing trebles. And another storyline from that game, Russell, as well, that I forgot to mention, where I said that Kieran Tierney went off. And he came back in time for the trophy ceremony, pumped up on morphine essentially just to sort of numb the pain. But yeah, a broken jaw did he have as well, and again, just again that magic about Celtic and that sort of like fairy tale about it. Even injured players, he's running back into the stadium. There's like a mobile phone video of him getting out of a car, still dressed in his kit, running up the stairs at the entrance at Hampden, and it's like, there you go, that's what it's all about, man. He's like, no, I need to get back to the stadium for the trophy lift.
I've been at that Nick a few times. He definitely is having it, man. He is having it. I remember he lifts the cup and he's just grabbing his jersey and he's shouting and swearing. It's just brilliant.
Oh.
I always remember as well, something that's quite interesting about that treble. We scored the first goal against Aberdeen, it was as well, in the League Cup final. We scored the first goal in that one.
Yeah, we did.
Do you remember the celebration?
It was
very angry.
Tom Rogic, wasn't it? Aye.
And he was they were all really like, get focused, back to the halfway line.
So
very similar to when Stuart Armstrong scores. Stuart Armstrong.
Yeah.
Who the fuck's that? That's the fucking, that's the Rangers fucking chairman or something.
I think so,
I don't know where that came from. Stuart Armstrong scores.
Yeah.
And it's an equaliser, but the same reaction at the first goal.
Aye.
So whether you go ahead or whether it's an equaliser, we're on the ball here. Get back to that halfway line. Business.
Yeah.
And I think that is what had completely changed in the Rodgers era, that these finals, Hampden was our bogey ground, remember, before this season. It's where we got the shits. We were like, no, do not want to go to Hampden. Rodgers turned that into, and I think the mindset, when you look at those two finals, when you look at those reactions to those goals, one being us going the lead, one being an instant equaliser when we looked at it, we could be under the cosh, and look at the reactions on both. He'd completely, for whatever mind trick he'd done, he had brought Hampden into being, this is your place of work, not a place to intimidate you. This is where you go in, where the business head's on, and we start making this our own. This is now your home ground, your second home. Whatever reason, if you look at those two celebrations, they're so similar, and that strikes a chord to me. And it's so important, this treble, because what we did at Hampden, we hadn't seen for a long time, and that was us getting the job done and not, for whatever reason, letting the myth, the spells that we thought Hampden cast upon us actually have any odds and outcomes. Bullshit. We're there. It's business. Absolute business. And obviously, you get to the Tom Rogic goal, and again, I mean, the lightning thing I didn't know about till you told me about, Phil, to be honest. It's a great story. That's class. But again, it's Rogic. Is he just having one of those moments that we were talking about earlier where he's like, watch this. I'm just about to dictate an outcome, because fuck that. And it's just like, it's just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant goal. It's inspired, it's ballsy, it's gallus, and then it's raw emotion from the most laid-back man in Europe at that time, Tom Rogic.
Yeah.
And he's running away, nearly ripping the shirt off. He's jumped into the fans. And
the celebration.
It's a moment in time, and that season deserved that treble. And Invincible, unbeaten in all domestic competitions, is absolutely outrageous. No one has taken the shine off that, Brown Warrior. No one has taken the shine off it. It was absolutely amazing. And yeah, I just feel that the reason it was so important was the hoodoo of Hampden was well and truly. Now it was like, do we actually kind of like it here? Now it's us scoring the late goals and the winners in it, having already won a final there this season. Suddenly it's back to being like, this is the party pad. And you've got a lot to thank that season for. That now when we go, for example, to Hampden tomorrow, if you flip this to 2011, 2012, there's no way we're this gallus. Even with Angie's team, there is no way we're this gallus if we play in Inverness Cali. So it's not just about the manager and the players in the park. There was a hoodoo. We would have been far more spooked as a fan base about tomorrow than what we are now. And that all begins 2016-17. That whole story starts to, and the narrative starts to change about Celtic at Hampden Park. I believe that.
Oh, well, the other thing as well about that goal and that moment as well, again, just if you're a football traditionalist, a romanticist, whatever, one of the stories that's amazing is obviously Tom Rogic scores that goal. A year before, we'd lost that semi-final to Rangers, one of the lowest points in recent history. Who missed the penalty? It was Tom Rogic. What end of Hampden did he miss it at? That end, the Celtic end. And I pretty much just a year and a bit later, he's the guy that scores that goal to win us that trophy, from the lowest of lows a year before to that euphoria. And another thing that adds to it, ironically, when I'm talking about the great weather, is the rain actually added to it. Because see, in a day and age now where you've got all these high definition and 4K cameras, see any of the pictures of Rogic celebrating and like the raindrops and stuff falling as well as he's grabbing the shot. Just something about it again just adds to it. It's just brilliant. Just the emotion comes out better. So the rain actually, I tend to say the thunder and lightning as well that day, the lightning strike. If you're sat in the south stand, you could see the flash of lightning. It was somewhere over, like, say, like Tory Glen, just towards the sort of northeast of the stadium. It was an incredible moment. And yeah, again, just adds to the fairy tale. And in fact, speaking of that, because obviously Liam, you said, like, you know, the fairy tale stuff. I went through like some of the notable like wins that Celtic have had in the Scottish Cup finals, and again, just the amount of wee sort of like stories you can put to each one. Just like I don't think there's any club out there that, you know, has won a trophy that much, and there's always like something like attached to them. Because obviously, I said at the start of the show, I was doing my wee factors. So 1892 was their first one, so that's like their first major trophy. 1937 had the record crowd, right, that I talked about earlier on against Aberdeen. 1965 is Jock Stein's first as manager, which kicked off a revolution essentially after Celtic had a dismal time in the 50s, but 1965 they'd won the Scottish Cup against Dunfermline, and many of the Lisbon Lions talk about that trophy being so pivotal. 67 is obviously the year where they won everything. They won the European Cup, they won the League Cup, the Scottish Cup, and the Glasgow Cup. 69 is an interesting one. The treble that year, they beat Rangers 4-0 in the final. You want to talk about Mavericks? George Connolly, there's a guy who's a Maverick. The older viewers know about him. My dad says he could have been the best out of all of the Quality Street gang. You know, like we talk about Dalglish and stuff like that. The one that he just seemed to reach a point and then just sort of vanished from the game and stayed away from it. But he scores a great goal in it when he takes the ball off John Gregg, who's trying to pass the ball out from defence and just basically goes round the goalkeeper and puts it into the empty net. Just dances around the keeper. Fantastic. 1972, they beat Hibs 6-1. Dixie Dean scored a hat-trick. Why is that significant? Because 2 years later against Hibs in the League Cup final, Dixie Dean scored another hat-trick. I think he might be the only player to have scored a hat-trick in a Scottish Cup final and a League Cup final and against the same opposition. 1975, Billy McNeil's last trophy as a player. 77 was Jock Stein's last as a manager and Kenny's last as a player. 1980, obviously, the Hampden riot, which talked about. 85 was the 100th Scottish Cup final played, not the 100 years, the 100th played, because obviously years when the war, World War I and II were on. It's 1988, the centenary double. We talk about last-minute goals, talk about Tom Rogic. That's one where Frank McAvenny scores a very late winner that day. I know we've got many people in the chat who talk about the centenary double, and it's one that we intend to do a full Bustalgia episode on when Johnny Logue is available, because he attended every game that season, so he is very well positioned to tell us about it.
So he's right now sporting the Bhoycie Bus shirt in Washington DC, outside the White House today. He was wearing the Bhoycie Bus shirt. How cool is that, man? That's just,
I know.
Amazing.
Joe Biden, maybe he'll endorse the Bhoycie Bus. He likes the Celtics, so there you go.
Is that his password or some shit?
It was his code name. It's his code name for like
his
the
code
Secret
name.
Service. Aye,
Celtic. That's mental.
We'll throw in an ED pharmacy discount for him as well.
But the centenary double, Liam, do you like? What's your memories of that one?
Sorry?
The centenary double. What's your memories of like winning that when McAvenny scores the late win against Dundee United? Young Kevin Gallagher put Dundee United ahead, and McAvenny scored the brace late on.
That was a part where I was living. We were living away at that point. You could only get it through newspapers and tapes and stuff like that. So it was always just. I've only ever read about those games and saw some of them on videos here and there. It was a huge gulf back then. You know, I was living abroad then, and you didn't have as much access to the stuff as you do now, which is brilliant. So yeah, a lot of that, you know, right up until we like Satanta actively kicked off is where I really started going and seeing every single game once they were available. You know, it was clubs that get the tapes and stuff like that, but I wanted to watch them live.
Well,
You know?
well, the 88 final is, of course, the one that spawned the Tommy Burns quote, which our manager Ange Postecoglou quoted just last week. That's the one where at the end of the game, he's interviewed by a young Jim White on Scott Sport after the game. And first of all, he gives a shout out to a young fan who's up in hospital, and he says, "I'll come and see you on Monday." So he makes a vow that he'll come and see him.
Which is
And then
just
he's like,
so good.
yeah.
So good.
The fact he remembered to mention that. That was
Who's
the first
even
thing he
thinking
mentioned.
like that?
Aye.
Who's
Well,
who does that? It's just world class, that bit.
And then he turns to the fans and he's like, this is for them. They're there. They're always there. And God bless every one of them. And it's a quote that's just been immortalised for us. Our very own manager, Ange Postecoglou, used it last week as well. And it's just a phenomenal moment. The emotion, like he's got like sort of those happy tears. Tommy Burns, it meant so much to him to win that trophy that day, the centenary double, because I don't think many teams have done that in the centenary year as well, and that's again part of the magic of Celtic. Of course, we followed it up the year later with what's known as the throw-in final, where we beat Rangers 1-0, where Roy Aitken basically bundled the ball out of play and then just took a quick throw-in just because he decided I'm taking this, and the referee just went, "Hi, all right then." And 30 seconds later, we scored, and Rangers still harp on about it to this day. So it should have been Rangers throw-in. 1995 is obviously the first trophy in 6 years, a very important trophy. We actually spoke about that just a few weeks ago, Russell, when we were doing the John Collins and Paul McStay one, where, was he the most glamorous of finals when Pierre Van Hooijdonk scored that goal? But my God, in terms of importance, is right up there. I talked there when I was going through that list, saying like 1965, the Lisbon Lions won their first trophy, essentially the 65 Scottish Cup, basically sets them on the way, and it's like that 95 Scottish Cup. Not a glamorous game, but my God, the importance cannot be underestimated.
It was unbelievable. It restored faith in, 6 years without a trophy's fucking unheard of. And it's my, first couple of years supporting Celtic, and I'm like, what is this? What are we doing, Dad? Why is it the only guy in the class who supports Celtic? Everyone else supports Rangers. We get humped every week. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, well, this is no good for me. This is ridiculous. And that moment happens, and at the time, I remember, Dad was quite emotional at the time. It was a big deal, if you like. Do you know what I mean? It was like, we needed that. Do you know what I mean? We needed that big time. Yeah, the game wasn't important, though. That was just about getting over the line, getting the job done again. And do you know what? That cup final win actually flies in ironically, Tommy's only trophy as manager, and it flies in the face of everything he actually did that was brilliant as a manager in terms of performance.
Yes.
It's the polar opposite.
Aye.
And I think that shows you the nerves have got to. I think it probably stems from the top. And I think Tommy's, I don't want to speak for him, it is a subjective thing. But, I think maybe the nerves stem from the top, and then they filter through, and then your leaders in the group, like Peter Grant, like Paul McStay, Paul McStay in particular, then Peter Grant, are also probably got a lot of nervous energy coming off them, because these guys have been there in the good times. They know the 6-year drought's unacceptable. They know the pressure that is now coming with this, having been part of the 94 squad. Obviously, they got beat off Wraith Rovers. We can't have a repeat of that yet. Airdrie is now showing real hallmarks of being a similar banana skin. And I wonder if we didn't freeze because we won the game. But I wonder if the reason we didn't get the rock and roll football we'd become accustomed to under Tommy by that point in a couple of seasons, I wonder if the reason we didn't get that display is because there was a nervous energy from the guys who knew. And the guys who knew were Tommy, Peter Grant, and Paul McStay in particular. You just go, this is a huge occasion. And I just wonder if at times like that, sometimes it's the beauty of having a Postecoglou right now in charge. That nervous energy is impossible because he's just an outright winner. They can look at everything with cold eyes, cold light of day eyes. You can just look at situations for what they are and make ruthless decisions and be ultra cool, calm, collected before these sort of games. Whereas you just know what it would have meant to these guys. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't be able to hide that energy. That's even if they're trying to do a poker face, the nervous energy coming off them would have been unreal. And it's great to try and picture they walked in and been, we're looking up to you. Yeah, folk would have looked up to them, but I just feel that they cared so much that it's just undeniable when you go. I mean, imagine it now, 6 years without a trophy. We had Sharkgate after winning a trophy that year. Do you know what I mean? Fuck. 2 months before that, we lifted our 4th treble in a row, and we had Sharkgate, 2 months later. Think about it. 6 years without a trophy. Folk would be, it would just be insane. Do you know what I mean? And then it would be, for example, Scott Brown in charge to try and win it back. With aging Callum McGregor still playing in midfield and stuff like that. And you go, those guys would carry so much weight in their shoulders because they've always been a part of it and they know how much it matters and they know how long. 6 years without a trophy now is unfathomable. It's just, and it's too much, I think, for particularly a younger person's, a younger generation. This isn't their fault, by the way. That's your age, that's your fault, as Cat Stevens says. But I just think when you actually look back at that, you go, that happened in my lifetime. That was 6 years without a win in my lifetime. And sometimes you need to take a step back and go, you don't know how lucky you are to have these good times, And just trying to mirror it into a modern day scenario. Obviously, it's very hypothetical, but it would be the equivalent of a very young Scott Brown being in charge, an aging Callum McGregor being the Paul McStay character, and I don't know, James Forrest still playing something like that. And that means the 3 guys that you go, think what they're feeling. They're the ones you're meant to be looking up to, but whilst they're trying to do their game face, they'll just be weighed down by the pressure that came with it. But at the end of the day, we got the job done. The trophy drought ended. It wasn't to be in the league under Tommy, but having that trophy, I think the picture of Tommy picking up Paul McStay will live long in the memory. I think that's a wonderful photo.
Oh, it's fantastic. And saying it just encapsulates the emotion, how much it meant to me. We did the McStay and the Collins one. Like I remember the commentary line. I think it's Jock Brown that's on commentary, and Paul McStay walks up to get the trophy, and I think his line is, he's a winner again. And obviously the emphasis is on the word again because it'd been so long. And since he'd been the captain, he hadn't won anything. The last time they won something, Roy Aitken was the captain. So probably Paul McStay was feeling a massive burden as well. It's like, I've now got the armband and we're not winning anything. So, what a relief it was for him and what a moment. But I have such an important one. But our next Scottish Cup, see, in the 2000s, we talk about modern day stuff and how, we're just spoiled for, the success of the 2000s onwards. So we've had 11 finals, we've had 1 loss, then we've won 10. So 2001 was Martin O'Neill's wrapping up the treble. 2004, Henry Glaston's big send-off. 2005 was Martin O'Neill's last trophy. 2007 was Neil Lennon's last trophy as a player, but 2011 was his first trophy as a manager. So there's a bit of a sort of like full circle moment there with him in the Scottish Cup. And then, of course, from 2017 to 2020, just take your pick. It's just Scottish Cups galore, really. But yeah, see, with the magic and the sort of fairy tale, I guess Billy McNeil's on record as saying something about there's like a fairy tale around Celtic. There is, when you look at that list that I've just read out there, all the different years, that's just a portion. And all the wee sort of subtext you can put to each one, there's significance. It's not just another number, another stat. Like, you look at teams nowadays like Man City that are just hoovering up trophies down in England. It's like none of them really say, like, the 2018 League Cup doesn't really stand out from the 2017 League Cup. They're just numbers to them. But with us, there's like a wee story each one and something that happened. Like, so you just feel with our club that it's again, Liam, what you're saying. It's that fairy tale, it's that Hollywood meant to be thing with Celtic fate, and especially with the Scottish Cup, there's always a wee bit of fate and fairy tale in the air when it's Celtic.
It's a big day. Everybody recognises what a cup stands for. Every league in the world, for the Stanley Cup to the World Series in baseball, when you're facing an elimination contest, there's something exciting about that. It's last man standing, and we're really good at being last man standing when it comes to that, and the story to this cup was that how many times we won it in 50? No, 45?
40. We're going for 41 tomorrow. We're the record holders at the moment. Rangers have, well, depending on how you want to view it, depending who you ask in Scotland, they've either got 33 and then the new version's won 1, or they've got 34. But either way, they're still significantly behind us in the Scottish Cup tally. We are the record holders at the moment. It is essentially Celtic's trophy. We've kind of made it ours over the years, 40 and counting.
Yeah. I know. I think we seem to perform better in the cups. We win a lot because I think our fans create a big day around it. We create it as a ceremony and as an occasion and a chance for the lot to get together and either, at the stadium or in each other's houses and all that. We see that, as I said, it's the best, watched, football in the world per capita. I think we take it seriously and we see that as a chance to, just like American Thanksgiving. I think the Scottish Cup's, sort of like that for us as well, where everybody wants to know what you're doing, who you're going to watch it with. And, it's funny, the Grey Cups like that in Canada is very similar. They're very territorial about their Canadian football. And I'm talking about the stuff you throw, NFL.
Yeah,
the CFL, and it's very much like that as well. And my God, they get no problems getting sponsors. They get really good sponsors. And these guys aren't even on much of a wage,
Yeah, true. Very, very true.
They still unbelievable. But I think Celtic's we're a Scottish Cup final team. I like it because again, it's like it's mass,
Well, that brings us on now to obviously what's happening tomorrow. Now, Russell, you've been very vocal this week. You've said 7-0. You're quite confident we're going to do them pretty heavily. Record-breaking victory awaits, and I understand the rationale. They've not played a competitive game in a while. That can definitely go against them because, how can you really keep that sort of competitive edge in your players just playing a few bounce games behind closed doors? So that could very well go in our favour tomorrow. But Liam, you haven't given us a prediction yet because you've not been on any of the shows this week. So Liam, what do you think tomorrow and first scorer, mate?
First scorer, Matt O'Reilly.
Oh, interesting. Okay, O'Reilly. No seen anybody predicting him.
And I think you're going to see a lot of scorers tomorrow. I think we're going to celebrate this. I think you're going to see, I think it's David against Goliath, unless it's one of these, again, fairy tale, if they've got a Hollywood script in them, it's going to have to come out tomorrow. And if they do pull it off, guarantee you'll have every star in Hollywood wanting to be in it because they've got no chance. They've got no chance. I can see us running at 7-0.
7-0? Fly? Oh, this is incredible. I went for a more conservative 3-0 victory, but as long as Celtic get the win, then I'll be happy with that.
I think there's something about the team when they started ticking again last week and they won that 5-0 against an Aberdeen side that is completely rejuvenated under Barry Robson. And the one thing you know about Robson is, like in the words of the immortal Dalglish, Barry Robson won't hand out carrots.
Oh, he definitely won't.
He will not hand out carrots. And for him to go to Celtic back, oh, Chunks, top man, mate. Great to have you back on.
Thank you very much.
And we dismantled them. Tomorrow will be Celtic's first choice team. Iwata will play at the back. Kyogo will start up front. Just call me Mystic Boys. And it will be the first choice lineup. Other than that, it will be the best midfield Celtic have. I know there was a pie in the sky a couple of months where we thought Aramoy was part of that. It's Matt O'Reilly, Callum McGregor and Rio Atati will play midfield. Jota and Maeda, that is his preferred wingers. They'll start. Greg Taylor, AJ at fullback, and it's Iwata instead of CCV. CCV is a huge part of the team. However, what do Inverness bring to the party to threaten us at the back? What does Billy Dodds do? I was speaking to a Dunfermline season ticket holder today at work, and he generally said he thinks it will be Scottish Cup record score. He says, I watch this level of football. He says, I watch it. He goes, Inverness are rotten, mate. He was like, I can't emphasise enough how bad they are. So, on that basis, because Ange writes his own scripts, because there's a lot of nerves in the air, and I think Ange can always put them to bed one way or the other, and he tends to do his talk around the park, whether it's leaving in a blaze of glory or whether it's to do the big announcement that he's staying, and I'm very 50-50 on that now, I've got to say. I'm not as in the camp that he's going to go as I maybe found myself yesterday morning. In fact, I'm very 50-50 on it, if not almost leaning now further towards him maybe staying. But that's maybe just me getting caught up in the occasion tomorrow as well. But I just think he's got a knack about him that he wants records. He's hungry for records. Yeah. I see a record tomorrow. We score early tomorrow, mate. It's game on because if we score early tomorrow, say we're 3-4-0 out of sight by 60 minutes, think what we do to them once they're knackered. And this is where Celtic come alive.
Yeah.
And if we decide, let's not take the foot off the gas, it's the last day of the season, for fuck's sake, just go for it. And you're bringing on Abadas, etc. Do you know what I mean? Just to run at them. Oh, desperate to score at Hampden because that's just in his psyche to do that thing. You could end up getting that wee flurry of goals again at the end that could get you over the line to a Scottish Cup record final win. I think it's very much in our grasp tomorrow. I've predicted that we'll win a game by 10 goals under Ange. I predicted that, in the first half of his first season. In fact, I think it was about game 8 or 9 into his reign, once we started like clicking into gear. And do you know what? I don't want to think about it. If this were to be his last game, then it's the last chance saloon for that prediction. Wouldn't be like Ange to go, remember you doubted me, mate. See you later, Bhoycie. Lots of love, Ange. Like, and whilst I think 10's maybe a bit fanciful, it wouldn't surprise me either. I definitely think tomorrow we can do 7-0 tomorrow. I believe it.
Oh my, yeah. I don't see. Yeah, I don't think it's unrealistic to think that. Your rationale is definitely seamless. So yeah, well, as long as they win tomorrow. But yeah, we record, because there's 2 records you could achieve. You could get a record scoreline, and of course it would be a world record 8th domestic treble. So no team in world football's done that. So history awaits for tomorrow. But of course you will be back, Russell, to do a wee pre-match show. 4:30. You're talking.
Yeah, do we? Hour before it, I think we can get right into the juice. Obviously, I've already told you the lineup, so we can dissect that.
Aye, indeed. And then obviously PMP will be on afterwards. I don't expect extra time to happen, but we'll be going on soon after it, or will it be a wee hour or so after full time? Give it time to settle, or just strike while the iron's hot?
It's going to be a very, very exciting game for the reasons of the records on stake. Firstly, a world record treble, a world record 8th treble. We need that. We want that record. Angie's first treble.
Yeah.
Celtic's 5th in 8 years. And then why not go for that scoreline as well? We didn't get the record points. Tally in the league. I don't think we got the record goals in the league, which we kind of been angling at for a long time.
Yeah.
Why not get the record Scottish Cup final win? We'll never get a better chance. It's Billy Dodds. Do you know when English teams used to go and play Tottenham and they used to go, it's like Alex Ferguson used to, his team talk used to be, it's fucking Spurs. That's what he used to say. Well, here's my team talk for tomorrow. It's fucking Billy Dodds. Do you know what I mean? Just go for it, man.
I just got to get it done, boys. But before we finish up then, because I'll come up to the 2 hours now, we were...
Chris Kerr, very quickly, Phil, very, very quickly.
Yes.
The Milton Treble Chasers, Chris Kerr, who's obviously featured on the bus a few times. I had the pleasure of meeting him last weekend on the Saturday. He came and met me for a pint. Nice. We were well oiled by then. But Chris Kerr's an absolute gentleman. He is in the running for Manager of the Year, I think, as well. I know Andrew's one of them, but this guy is on route for a treble with his Milton Junior side. So, well done to him with the youth team at Milton. He's done a sensational job, and I'm wishing you all the best to win that treble, Chris Kerr. You're a gentleman, mate.
Indeed. Get back on the bus, Chris. Come on, man. Come on. Yeah, come on. Before we finish, though, we bit of trivia before we wrap it up, because obviously at the start of the show, way back an hour and 54 minutes ago, I'd asked, obviously, a wee bit of trivia. It was regarding the quadruple treble goal scorers. So we had 7 different goal scorers in those 4 finals, those 4 Scottish Cup finals. Can you name the 7 of them? A few of them have been named tonight, so a few answers were obviously given away along the show, but I think you'll get these between you with no mistakes.
Right, Big Tommy for a start. We just talked about.
Of course. Yep.
6.
James Forrest.
Oh, James Forrest did not score in a Scottish Cup final. In a League Cup final, he did.
Did he not score against Motherwell in the Scottish Cup final?
League Cup final.
Was it?
He went on a spell. He went on a spell where he scored 3 League Cup finals in the bounce.
Did we play Motherwell in the Scottish Cup and the League Cup final one season?
We did.
That's it. So we have made the mistake already, right? Okay.
It's all right. It's fine.
Sorry, Phil. No wonder I lost sudden death.
The goal that you're imagining, though, I know the goal you just said there, but it's not James Forrest that scored that. It is somebody else, though. That's
Callum McGregor.
Yes, Callum McGregor scored that day. That was the final when Michael Buffer came out and did the team introductions.
Genius. That's who's selling the product. How can you go from Michael Buffer hosting the ring walk, if you like, of the two teams to having no sponsor? It's like we dip our toes and then just go, whoa. We're getting a wee bit too popular there. They get the heebie-jeebies.
That was that day. Beautiful sunny day at Hampden. It was also the day there was a royal wedding. There was a nice rousing rendition of Shove Your Royal Wedding Up Your Arse. I wonder if Piers Morgan was upset with that one as well. We were singing that day. Bet he wasn't he? Because Meghan Markle was involved. So he definitely was. He was probably singing that along with us. But yeah, that was that day. So that was the Michael Buffer Cup final. So Calmac scored, but somebody else scored that day as well. Do you remember who? A quite tidy finish as well.
Griff
is an answer, but it's not from that final.
He was against Hearts.
Griff is from the COVID final behind closed doors. Yep.
Tidy finish.
Aye.
Scott Brown.
No Scott Brown. No.
Right.
Captain
for all of you. Let's get ones I know. Odson Edward.
Yeah, Edward. Yep, he scored in the treble and the quad treble. The chipping Craig Gordon.
Yeah, I know. And Gordon threw the ball at him. A wee angry pants huff.
He was very angry, wasn't he?
He pulled his angry pants on. He's like, "Oh, you're so angry." Shut up, Craig. Didn't mate.
I've never seen a goalie get angry at a player for chipping him. It was just so weird watching him lose the plot, like, because they couldn't pick it up at first. They had to go back and film it a few times. And did he just really do that?
I'm pretty sure, again, it caused a meltdown in the media with guys like Neil McCann were going to say, "Oh, it's so disrespectful. So disrespectful." Shut up, Neil McCann. Nobody cares, mate. In fact, hold on. There's one thing for it. You know what, Neil McCann? So there you go. Neil McCann.
Well done, Phil. That was good.
That's what that's there for. Use in case of emergency.
Stuart Armstrong, we said that?
Yeah, Stuart Armstrong, or Stuart Robertson, as you called him earlier on. But yeah, Stuart Robertson. Yes, he did indeed. He scored. Yep.
How many more to go?
2 more to go. You've got one from the Motherwell 2018 final and one from the COVID final against Hearts that you've not got yet.
Mikael Lustig wouldn't have scored, no?
No, he assisted Edward for the winning goal with that header out of the
the header through.
Yeah. His last game for the club that day.
Yeah, this is annoying me. I hate when my mind goes blank like this. I hate it.
Ryan Christie, Phil.
Yeah, Ryan Christie. Scored in the...
Of course.
He scored in the COVID one. So the one that you've still not got is the Motherwell 2018 final. So tidy finish from outside the area. That was a game where we had it wrapped up early. We scored both our goals in the first 20 minutes that day. Yep.
Oh, Olivia and Cham.
It was Cham, yeah. It was Olivia and Cham outside the area, yeah.
Yes.
A nicely tidy finish from outside the area at the bottom corner. So yeah, it was Stuart Armstrong, Tom Rogic, Callum McGregor, Olivia and Cham, Odson Edward, Ryan Christie, and Lee Griffiths all scored the goals. So yeah, that wraps us all up nicely in time. Just 1 hour, 59 minutes and 35 seconds. Just in time for the 2 hour mark. So there you go. So yeah, folks, that is it. So yes, tomorrow Russell will be back on about 4:30 for a wee pre-match PMP, and then obviously there's
Connor Carl's joining me, and hopefully we'll get the big name Terry on for the post-match. Of course, any of the other bus contributors are welcome. Liam, if you want to join us for pre-match or post-match, just you holler me up, and you're welcome on, pal. You're welcome on, mate. So
no worries at all.
I think it's important that we actually do give the game the preview it deserves, and normally we'd have done it on the Thursday night forum last night, but there was obviously a story dominating, which I think had to be addressed, and that's fine. And tomorrow we'll give the final its due respect, and we'll do a wee hour before it, which is I don't normally do. It might mean going head to head with the wee fella, but guess what? Nobody cares, mate.
And on that note, we are off ski, guys. So enjoy the final whenever you watch it tomorrow. And hopefully when we reconvene tomorrow night, we'll be talking about the history making Celtic 8-time treble winners. Sounds good to me. So yeah, we will catch you all later, guys. Enjoy it.